All right, and there we are again. Another Monday, 4 p.m. In Germany. So welcome to another freshly squeezed episode of PKs on Air. This time we, by popular demand, brought someone back who had his kind of stream debut just a couple of weeks ago, actually. Before we get into that, Dominique, welcome to the show as always. Good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I had a good, relaxing weekend, so I'm happy and ready for the next week.
And how's the progress?
Sorry.
How's the progress with your book reading journey? There was a massive teaser, I recall, a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I don't know. So how many did you manage? Is it at least one or no?
Yeah, to be honest, Netflix came in between. So my absolutely favorite series on Netflix just published a new season this weekend. So I was completely out of everything.
Which one is that?
It's Dark, the German series.
Yeah, I've seen the first episode too yesterday.
Yeah, I just wanted to see just one episode, and then it was like, okay, that's it with my weekend. I just need to stay here.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, Paul, welcome back. Very happy to have you back. For those of you who don't know you, just quickly, maybe 2 sentences of intro, Paul, and then we talk about Dark or maybe something else.
Thank you for having me back. Yeah, I'm the department lead for paid social at PKs for the past 2.5 years, and today we will talk about Facebook. And basically with a very short time share about Corona and Facebook, and a longer share where it comes to elections, politics, and basically everything that's happening right now to Facebook, but also Twitter.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, we are not into politics, but we're happy to watch from the outside and see to kind of try to understand what the platforms are actually doing. So that's what kind of asked Paul to come back, because we got a lot. And by the way, if you have missed that episode, go back to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and whatnot. But like the previous episode with Paul is available on the channel as well. Also, if you go through it and are wondering if you can get the slides, that's totally fine as well. Just drop us a line, hi@pa.ag, and we're happy to kind of provide them as well. Paul gave like a thorough and like really in-depth update on all things happening on the platforms around Corona. So this is also why we're not going too deep today, but rather have kind of I assume, a bit of an update, Paul, on the latest things that kind of happened, right? Yeah. But before we get into this, I would say we just have like maybe 3 to 5 minutes conversation on what you guys are seeing generally in the markets. So how does it feel from your perspective? Things kind of, I mean, we had a long discussion also with Raphael last week on how kind of his impressions are in terms of what's happening in Switzerland. I'm sure we all like somehow watch the case numbers in some regions that are a bit further away from the European Union, obviously. But what's your take for the EU, for Germany, especially Dominique? How does it feel for you guys in the day-to-day work? Is it back to normality? Is it somewhat in between? What's your take?
Yeah, so I would say, especially in terms of content marketing, we are still far away on getting back to normal, to be honest, especially when we talk about digital PR in terms of content. We are always and very close in touch with journalists, of course, during our work in content marketing. And unfortunately, it's still the same situation in Germany since we have like 12 weeks now, or something, 12, 13 weeks.
Yeah.
So that they are on short-time work. Many journalists, they are not in the offices, of course, or just a few. The response rate is super, super low. Also getting any kind of content pushed into the media is pretty hard. So we need to be super creative at the moment and super fast with everything. So I think the term of news checking is pretty important at the moment, more important than before. I think that's a kind of useful tactic also before Corona, of course, but during that time at the moment, we see we need to be updated every day in terms of getting any kind of content into the media. So checking daily news at the moment and also finding the right person to get in touch with, this is massive. And also what I've seen, but this is also similar to the last weeks, that content campaigns getting smaller still. So short-term content, a lot of social content, of course, a lot of static infographics, but not those crazy interactive landing pages for content marketing measures. Yeah. So
is your assumption, is that the case because people are just too busy with other stuff, or is it like from a creation perspective more so that they're maybe afraid to kind of miss the topic and then just don't get the coverage, or is it both, or how's it for you guys? I mean,
I think
you're probably somewhat in the same boat, right?
Somewhere, yes. Maybe I can relate to your Dominique's smaller campaigns into content marketing. I can relate or transfer this to smaller ad spends in advertising, right? The thing is, especially for travel, and we do have some hotel clients, you have restrictions and capacity of hotel booking. And that means if you're already at the 60-65% capacity limit, like in Niedersachsen, one of those Saxonies in Germany, then you cannot accept any more bookings, right? So that means you need less spending. And also what I have seen and heard is that Germany-wide, when you travel in Germany, basically in Baltic Sea and North Sea is booked out completely. So that seems to be the national summer of the year for let's say nationwide
domestic travel, right?
So there's no real purpose spending more except for the reason that you would like to increase your waiting list, basically, or you would like to shift budgets towards branding campaigns, which can make sense, of course. But with minor flights, basically tests on different platforms, like we tried on Reddit, Snap, and actually we tried on TikTok. Once we figured out you cannot do self-served advertising on TikTok, so you have to ask someone. But so it goes more towards branding with minor campaigns and limits in performance, basically.
So how does that work for kind of Europeans, Paul? Like, I mean, obviously, I think Reddit is still, but maybe I might be wrong on this. I mean, it's still quite US centric, right?
Yeah,
totally.
We can
and how's it with? Sorry, go on.
Sorry for interrupting, but we can see it does work in Germany. But we also notice, because you just said more US, more English, we can see that our English ads do get more clicks and more conversions. So it basically correlates with that more English-speaking content performs a lot better. That means also your landing page has to be localized or has to be in English in that case. But not to underestimate the German click power of Reddit. So since Reddit is the, let's say, social platform of, in a polite way, geeks and nerds who really dive deep into it and talk about it, and where you can create in a very different way your Reddit sub-threads, you will, in my opinion, it feels like that you will advertise directly in a wasp nest of specialists. And we could really see that in terms of click rates. And if I tell you how low the CPM is, you would totally free up your ad budget for Reddit because it's just ridiculously low compared to even Facebook.
Understood. Understood. And how's the other ones doing? I mean, like, I have not had the chance really to kind of play around with TikTok. But I mean, everyone is kind of talking about it, at least, or like I think they're trying things there. So what's your experience there? What are the experiences that you guys have been doing? So what do people need to know?
We were that close to launch a campaign, but as said, it was a nationwide, German-wide branding campaign, basically, for travel. We had the totally right content, so now we play the content on Instagram, right? You know, like a beautiful campaign on Instagram. But you cannot currently self-serve advertise in Germany. That's why we didn't launch anything. But I've seen, and this is what in many workshops, I always give this example. You can see how interface-wide or interface-wise TikTok is more or less copying all the other big players in social advertising, but
Right.
that's totally fine because you need to get used fast to a platform. You need to understand it fastly. It does not need to have totally different wordings and namings and KPIs and functions. It basically works the same. You have content, you have an audience, you have a goal, and then you publish it and you go for it, right?
I was going to say, right, it's kind of the learned behavior. So why totally reinvent the wheel, right? Yeah, makes sense.
So that looks totally different on many platforms, even though in detail it's of course a bit different. I'm also surprised with the tracking on TikTok. So they do have a good tracking system using the TikTok Pixel, and in general the interface looks totally nice. Yeah. So I hope to launch a campaign soon. I know many countries work already, like France, Italy, Spain, but for some reason not Germany. So therefore you write you basically, you write, you fill out the template email, you send it to TikTok, and someone else will do it for you. I have no idea how they report it and stuff.
This is really crazy. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
They just ask you which sender, which content, which audience. All right, we do the rest for you.
We do that for you. Okay. Now the question is what they do in detail, but maybe we'll find out once you have done the first round, and then there's some learnings to share. I'm curious. I'm curious, to be honest.
Definitely.
Nice. But so that means from operational kind of perspective, it's the same for you guys. There's obviously some more work involved in regards to the fact that, as you said, like some just, offers are not available anymore. That means like shift of budgets, reduction of budgets, potentially trying new things. So it's not normal, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense. Not normal.
Yeah, so
fair enough.
Is that many also our clients, but not only them, are pretty careful with taking any kind of decisions. So I have the impression that everything is super limited on short-term thinking at the moment. So even the restrictions of, for example, in Germany, are getting lower and lower each week. I have still the feeling that everybody is like super careful. Okay, maybe everything can change next week again. So let's keep it short and simple in terms of any kind of campaigns, for example. So because the content of today could not be relevant during the next week, maybe. So I think this is something related to that. Yeah.
But I think it's kind of also a bit of the nature of the beast, really, right? I mean, in the current situation, I mean, you can only plan so much in advance, really, because at the end of the day, I mean, we all don't really know, right? And there's even different predictions from specialists. So I guess I kind of can understand, like, at least the not probably directly affected industries, even though being more cautious, because we all don't know what's going to happen in that regard. Definitely. Understood. So I would say, that said, Facebook, I think, Paul, you said, has been quite active in recent days and recent weeks again.
Yeah.
Do you just want to put up, I think you have some more slides again. Do you just want to put them up on the screen share while you're doing this? For those that want to follow along, just feel free to email us, or just leave a comment. Email is hi@pa.ag, or leave a comment on any of the platforms. So we should be live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, as well as Twitter, I believe. So feel free to comment there. Yeah, exactly. Feel free to comment there. We're trying to kind of keep up with it. Love your participation as always. And I guess then, without further ado, Paul, let's get cracking.
All right. So you can see the PKs and presentation, right?
Yeah, all there.
All right.
Yep.
Good
to go.
So let's jump quickly into the topic. How is Facebook handling coronavirus and elections? And as mentioned, so there is a very short, let's say, part of coronavirus, because not so many stuff has changed in the past. And I think that's actually quite okay, because until a certain point, it's probably a governmental topic, right? So if you have the infrastructure, if you have features and possibilities put together for the companies, but also for the government in each country, then from there on, the communication is basically a nationwide topic. So with that being said, actually one major thing has changed, which is that Facebook is no longer restricting advertising of non-medical face masks,
You mentioned it last time, right? I mean, you mentioned last time that it's especially not possible, right? Yeah, I recall.
It's not super brand new news, but I expected that there are actually a lot more ads when it comes to non-medical masks. But of course, demand and supply, right? So at the time when Facebook was, let's say, restricting the advertising of or the ads of non-medical face masks, the price went pretty high for non-medical masks because demand was high and not so much supply, since everything basically came from China, and a lot of, let's say, masks had to be built maybe in different countries of, let's say, preparation. And with that being said, Facebook was able to block something like scam advertisers who overprice non-medical face mask, but maybe also sanitizer and things like that. So I think that was a quite fair and a quite good activity from Facebook in order to save ourselves from scam in our feeds regarding, let's say, especially those products. And so that is the one major thing. I wanted to look for some examples, but I haven't seen so many examples, especially in Germany, from face masks. So there's not so much crazy stuff going on. And that would be basically it. So if you remember the last time when I talked about Facebook, there was a topic about Facebook grants. So Facebook grants was spending 100 million in the US, which is already closed, this application form, more or less. And I applied and I was requesting for Germany for grants, not that we get grant, but that we somehow support when a company gives Facebook grants or receives Facebook grants. But I haven't heard back so far, so I'm not sure what's going on there, honestly, but we will wait and I will keep you updated with that.
All right.
And basically everything else maintains more or less the same. So that makes it simple from here.
Short and sweet. Yeah, that's always good. One question though on this one, because so what's your expectation? Do you think they kind of will? And I know that's totally gut feeling, but do you think this might change again, or do you think they might like kind of continue start blocking stuff like this again, or are you like, well, I think in a sense, in quotation mark, right? So this is it's kind of settled in, and they kind of kept up with it, caught up with it, and now it's okay to run them. What do you think, or is it just something that people should still be worried about in the sense of, okay, now I put my time in, I build the campaigns, and all of a sudden like they kill them again? What's your take on that?
No, I don't think that they will restrict the ads and the campaigns basically anymore, but also not, let's say, in this phase of Corona. Maybe in any other 20, 30 years, 100 years from now, if there's any other pandemic, hopefully not, but maybe then it's different. But I wouldn't say for this coronavirus phase, there will be no more restrictions. Also, just for the case, due to the case that we have already so much supply and face masks, whether it's medical and non-medical, that there's basically no real reason to do it from my point of view. On the other hand, smaller or minor advertisers who sell masks, they don't sell super typical masks anymore from what I've seen.
Now it's more customized, right?
More customized. Maybe even I have seen a very funny post, maybe one of the funny publishers, where it comes to face masks, that you don't take your basic face mask anymore, but a luxurious face mask, and then it's about who has the most expensive face mask. Maybe I've seen it on the streets already, the LV face mask and some other leather face mask. So we are there already, and if there's already a luxurious masks a market for things like that, then I think the supply is high enough. When you go already to a luxurious premium or customizable level of products. So therefore, I don't see why should the masks and things like this be restricted anymore.
Yeah,
totally not.
Sense. Cool.
So going from the easy topic to something very, very, let's say, exciting, maybe polarizing. So I was quickly talking with Domi about this, and we also think this will be an exciting topic. So let's see how we get through this. Elections in the US.
Maybe just one quick shout before. So I think we picked a topic that's not simple. Just keep in mind that we're not taking any sides with this. I think this is also very, very important. Not that we don't like to take sides. I think PKs as well as us, we do have some quite strong opinions on certain things, but I think this, like a political topic, we just try to kind of, I would say, comment from the outside in, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So Paul, let's do it.
Maybe before we get into this slide, I noticed that there is obviously not a single year where Facebook does not have a scandal or something like this, like negative news about Facebook. So that makes it really hard as an advertiser on Facebook to always defend year over year. Why am I doing this, for example? Yeah. But on the other hand, it's fun, it's developing and reacting quickly. And with that slide, I basically want to tell you how the relationship and maybe at what level of user base and responsibility we are actually talking, right? So in the top graph, you see the world population, the blue bar, around 7.8 billion. And 4.57 billion people do have access to a TV, so they can watch TV, right? And Facebook, including Instagram and WhatsApp and the Messenger, has 3 billion users, and 2.36 billion users are daily active users. Yeah? So everything else is just quite small compared to Facebook. That means I could find some numbers from TikTok and Douyin, which is the Asian TikTok. It's basically the same network. It has around 800 million users and grows really fast. Then we have LinkedIn, like almost 700 million. And Twitter booms basically during this coronavirus pandemic to up to 330 million, right? So when there was the Twitter fact check on Trump's post, and most users or most people in America most users are from America who use Twitter, then you talk about a user base which is around 1/10 of Facebook. So I read one statement. I think it's been a while, like from Tony Robbins, that you cannot compare millionaires and billionaires. So that's why it's not possible to really compare it in this huge at that scale, basically. So, regarding of Cambridge Analytica in 2018, GDPR and all the other data scandals Facebook has, it always changed something, but it's a lot of hard work basically for them. So they work on transparency and more stuff, and transparency and how they show it and how they deliver transparency got a lot better in the last some basically days. And I will show you some examples with that. Before we get into those examples, I would like to refer to the current situation, because there's this stop hate for profit. I could not really fact check where it all started, but stop hate for profit is basically, you could say it's an organic marketing campaign, because especially in the US, Stop Hate for Profit wants to motivate advertisers and brands to not spend budget on Facebook, but also on the other social platforms in July or longer. Of course, they want to reach out to the global brands of the world and basically want to force Facebook and also Twitter and other social platforms to rethink how they evaluate hate speech in organic posts, but also on ads. We will see some examples what hate speech maybe is, maybe not is for us. And we will also think about basically what this campaign is trying to do is to create a loss of profit in July. So Facebook basically makes a move. And a lot of large brands are already participating, like Patagonia, Mozilla, and but also Starbucks, Pepsi, and so on and so on. And it is, as mentioned, not only on Facebook, but also on Twitter. So and I think basically it started all with the fact check on Trump's post, because Trump is probably known for a lot of hate speech in his posts, to say it like this. So what did Facebook do? Many advertisers do know the Facebook ad library, so use it in order to check which brand does run a certain ad. And what's brand new, you could say, is this field: issues, elections, or politics. So before, just some days ago, there was no field like this. It was basically just brands, and there was nothing that separated brands from issues, elections, and politics. And right now, when you go to those to the Facebook ad library, you can basically pick a country and see immediately in which country is an issue or elections, or which politicians are running ads currently. So I was having a look at this Facebook ad library, and I have one question for you. So since there's in November the election, the question is from both parties, basically both candidates: what do you think in this year on Facebook, which candidate spent more budget on Facebook until today?
So Dominique, what do you think?
Sorry?
What do you think?
I would say Donald Trump, but no idea.
Bastian, what would you say?
Would be too obvious, but yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's probably hard to say from the outside, but like, I mean, as you said, you would probably expect it to be Trump, but I personally think I have seen more from Biden actually. Okay. So it depends on which kind of way you go, but then again, they might just be more efficient in their targeting, right? So I don't know. I would just for the sake of it, I would pick Biden, but then we shall see what happens.
So Bastian is right. So currently, Joe Biden spent more budget on Facebook, and I also thought, of course, it's Donald Trump. Basically, some weeks ago, I read a post, and I'm not really sure of the source, but a campaign manager from Donald J. Trump, he said that they want to spend like 10 times more than in 2016 on Facebook. So I thought definitely it's Donald J. Trump, but honestly, Joe Biden spent more budget. And now is actually the question, where did they spend the budget to, right? Or how do the ads look like? Before we get there, maybe one or two words to Joe Jorgensen. So I didn't know that actually there's a third party in America, which are the Libertarians. And of course, you can basically times some 100, basically times million, you can multiply the Libertarian ad budget on Facebook. So that's probably also the impact here. Yeah. So let's have a look at Joe Biden and the ads he's running, right? So maybe one more thing. When you go to the Facebook ads library, you can see they are playing a lot of ads, like several hundreds. Yeah. So I picked everything that looked somehow catchy for me on the first page. So we have something very, I would say, very simple. Joe Biden talking in the video directly to the user, and he's basically asking for donations, since there's probably no company, no government which can 100%, or basically political party, which can 100% support a rally. The parties themselves are asking for donations. And once you see the ad and you click on the sign up button in the bottom right corner, you land on the landing page. And now please remember, the ad spend value is like $5, $10, $35, right? So you have a very soft ad, where Joe Biden is talking to you. You land on a very nice page, and you can spend like minimum of $5, probably $1 if you want to, but let's say it starts with 5. But then you have a more straightforward Biden topic, right? So this is also a video. I just wanted to grab a thumbnail that's a bit more challenging. But what does it do here? It's Joe Biden basically blaming Trump, too weak to lead during coronavirus and stuff. So he's not always nice with his advertising, asking for donations, but he's also, of course, blaming the other party, the other candidate. And you can learn more when you click, of course, on the ad, and you again land on a donation page. So I wouldn't really say I learn more when I click on the call to action, but in the end, starting at now $15 suggested, you can now spend your budget in order to kind of beat basically Trump in terms of donation support, right? So I was having a deeper look at this page, and then I remember when seeing the Facebook pixel, but also the Twitter tag, that basically no one asked me for consent being on this page. But anyways, I'm not the target audience and I have no influence here if I want to. But of course, they are tracking heavily, like with the Facebook pixel and the Twitter tag. And that makes sense in order to find similar users who hopefully spend and give you donations, like scaling your campaign, but also it helps you to track the user. And if you have, I would say, if you have the single, let's say a timestamp, and basically the payment information, you pretty much know each and every single individual paying, right? So we have two different content strategies. One is nice, and one is quite straightforward against the, let's say, against your opponent. And what does Trump do? Is the question. Yeah, Trump is also asking for donations, and he uses maybe not too much. Basically, from my understanding, he uses too much text in the visual, right? Because you get a lower reach, or you pay a little more for the same reach. But it seemed to work. He, in a more or less, promotional and nice way, is asking also for donations because they heavily rely on it. And when you land on the landing page, conversion rate optimization at its best, right?
Yeah.
So to our time window, insert your payment information starting at $42, but the next step would be $50. So I'm asking myself, which conversion rate optimizer said 42 and then 50? So what is the big difference? But for some reason, for people, it seemed to work. What I really like to say, maybe I have it in the next example. So we have this very, let's say, nice and straightforward and support the rally type of ad.
Also funny, by the way, that they had the check marks already set. Maybe you wanted to say that, but I'm grinning on this. Like the reoccurring thing is pre-checked, right? And also like the scale goes way higher, right? So like 2.8K in comparison to like 500 or 1,000 is quite interesting. Yeah.
Totally. And you see the urgency here. You see this. You see, I didn't even notice that there's a check mark, and I suddenly subscribed to paid for Trump, right? That's quite interesting. And then we have something I found it almost shocking, and that's I don't know. So just see it for yourself. So here it is. Of course, currently he's talking a lot against the Antifa and again the dangerous mob and so on and so on. And once you click on this page, the landing page, it becomes quite almost scary or kind of very different compared to the one before, right? And outside of the visual, which is has a very dominant, let's say, steering right into your eyes, right? It gives you on the left-hand side the information that if in a certain time frame, if you list yourself as a user, that Donald Trump basically gets a list of people with names on it, and Donald Trump in the morning will then read through all the names and will probably remember you. So
by your Facebook pixel ID.
Yeah, now before getting there, I would like to highlight every advertiser basically knows this is a form. You know, you fill out your first name, your last name, your email, and there were some more fields. So with that, you can create a custom audience. And with that custom audience, of course, you can use it to find, again, similar users based on the individual information, but also you can use the information for other purposes. You can use it for yourself, depending on the consent you gave. And I also had a check on the Facebook pixels. So there are basically 3 different pixels implemented on this page. Could be that multiple agencies and so on, maybe old pixel, new pixel and stuff, track you. But what I find a bit more interesting is that there's also the snap pixel. So I do believe that it helps them to get back and refer to users on the Snapchat platform in order to scale their audiences. And Snapchat is basically known for a very young audience of users, right? So it totally makes sense for not for brands, for politicians, for everyone to target and advertise to a person as young as possible possible to advertise to. And I do believe, I have no proof for this, but if you would investigate, maybe you will find the one or the other ad. But right now they are basically collecting information with no consent again, right?
But they probably don't have to, right? I mean, the
US doesn't have any.
It's lovely. Like GDPR at its best, not existing. So there was no fundraising on this one.
On this one, no. The idea behind this, good that you mentioned, is that you take a position, right? They probably know not everyone of a Trump supporter is able to really support financially. But what if you have a supporter which wants to support somehow, but not financially? You could get his information, and with that you enrich, basically from advertiser point of
your audience, right?
you enrich your audience and quality and find similar users. Because on Facebook, also on Snap, and depending on third-party data, you can choose or you can advertise to certain income groups or income segments, basically. But sometimes, no matter how you work your way around, sometimes the personal user data, as long as you have consent wherever it's possible, is your best quality or basically data source. And with that being said, you can again scale your campaign, find more similar users, and have a very, very cost efficient way of advertising when you use custom audiences and lookalike audiences. So
very nice.
So how did, let's say Facebook, what's the impact of Facebook? So to summarize it quickly, we had something going on with the fact check of Trump. Of course, we had something going on with hate speech, which is in a very different discussion, a part of Black Lives Matter and everything that happened years before, right? So there's a lot of things going on, and Facebook, let's say, receives an impact, and the impact and stock value, if you want to have a look at that, of the past 5 years, past 5 days for the in euros calculated is around -5-6%. Depending on the day, it's somewhere between maybe even 8% on a daily loss, 5 to 8% loss. But let's take it into a higher level of evaluation. So you see April, where the coronavirus started, advertisers and basically the whole tech industry lost somewhere between 10 and 30, maybe even more percentage of share, but ramped up over time. And now we have at the very right side, again, this impact of the current situation. So there is definitely some impact. There is some loss. I think it was at around $52 billion, which is Facebook currently losing in shares right now. But I'm not 100% sure with that numbers, but it's so much budget that Facebook obviously reacted. And how did they react? By advertising, of course. So if you advertise,
of course.
What else?
What else?
if you lose that much money in billions, right, then it's totally worth to spend 260K in the last 7 days just in order to get the message. Look, we prepare for November. We have updated our Facebook ad library. So they push the information, they push the message that they do something for transparency. And I have to admit, because I see Facebook from a very positive point of view, many people know that. I know they have a huge, let's say, responsibility and many still things to do in order to make it a very good platform, safe for everyone, and so on. But I really like that they work on it, and I can see the action here going, and I hope they can make it even better, right? So even better would probably, from my understanding, mean natural language processing with meaning, with human meaning behind, in order to get out this hate speech stuff and maybe some other very high advanced technical things only the guys on Facebook and other IT specialists know. But things like this will help over time to contribute to a better platform for Facebook and later on to all the other social platforms, because they basically face the same problem, but they are not always or seldomly under fire like Facebook is. So then what did Twitter do? Because also Twitter had some problems with that. They lost a bit of market share. And as you can see, a very similar basically graph, even though the value of the company is, of course, a lot smaller. Basically nothing. So no Twitter ads on Facebook. So there's not so much to say here, to make it short. And I wanted to have, with that new Facebook ad library, actually a look at Germany. And that's why we will have a sneak peek to Germany and the Facebook ad library and what's going on there. And what you can see here, and of course, that's absolutely logical. On the first place, you see, and this is mixed elections, politics, but also brands and companies. You see that the German Bundesregierung is advertising heavily in terms of coronavirus and the Corona podcast. And
what was the time frame that, Paul? Sorry, what was the time frame on this?
That is
7 days again?
7 days.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Sorry for not saying this.
No worries. Yeah, you're right. There it is. I missed it.
But hard to see. I also, last
no
7 days, and that's really nice. And I'm except the thing or the feeling, because I think you can basically feel your smartphone, and you already mentioned it once, except there's one thing that burns your battery like hell.
Yeah, it's insane.
I'm totally fine with this Corona app, and I really like that they push it forward and take
absolutely
budget. And that's basically it in terms of what Germany does on the Facebook ad library. So Bundesregierung is the highest spender in the last 7 days.
Which I think makes sense, right? We also investigated, if you recall, we had this, the one project, or like the thing that we investigated in the past earlier this year, that, the regulations that we have in Germany, not to make it too much of a too German episode, I would say, but we have insanely hard restrictions when it comes to advertisements for like parties themselves. So like if you want, like it's incredibly hard. So I would imagine that if you are running advertisement for one of those parties, then there will nowhere be near to the numbers that we will be seeing in the US, obviously. And I think they just this would be their dream, right? They would be very happy to have this cross-platform integration, knowing where are my voters and how can I reach them. And Dominique starts her journey on Facebook, but at the end of the day, I get her on Instagram. Consent, whatever that is, right? So I think that would be their dream. But I think in Germany it's incredibly hard with the restrictions. And I understand also in some of the other more like Europeanish kind of focused markets, it's somewhat the same, right?
Yeah, and also when you want to run political ads, you have to, let's say, sign up for that before. You cannot just run it like this. And you have, as an advertiser and also basically as an organization which does not spend something in the first place, you have to basically show yourself as a political, let's say, party or political institution, and therefore need to be transparent to Facebook as much as possible.
Which I think is a good thing, right? I mean, there's this is one of the points that often comes up. Like you don't even know if that's like somewhat politically motivated or like colored in any sense. So I think this is like really a good thing. And the same is true, I think, if I recall correctly from one of the chats that we had with Julia, right? The same is basically true for Google, at least Google in Germany again. So you need this approval or pre-approval before you can even do that, which makes sense. But super interesting that Trump is actually also using strategies to kind of build out more precise or like selected kind of groups of audiences, and then potentially kind of tackle them a bit later down the road, depending on how the progress is of the campaign.
When you go on those ads, you can basically see on the America map in which countries and he's mostly advertising, and which states he's mostly advertising.
Yeah, of course.
The problem is, you see one ad, so it's so laser targeted that you see a value of $100 in one audience somewhere, but we know he has several thousand ads running. But what you can see is that many southern states, of course, are advertised too, and less of the northern states on the east or west coast. So it goes basically lots to the southern states of the US, and that's no surprise, basically, but it's very
I was going to say that makes sense that there's someone that knows how to do the job, right? I mean, that's especially from a targeting perspective. You could argue about the landing page, but then again, we are not the audience, right? So I'm sure they will or they do kind of split test that as well.
When you have that much budget, then it
would be insane. It would be insane if you wouldn't. So I'm also curious about this 42, but I think there's a reason behind it. Maybe one of the or a bunch of tests showed that that's like one of the likelier numbers that they start with. So I'm sure there's a reason a reason behind it.
Probably an insider. Yeah.
And it probably it might be an insider. As well. Yeah, really cool, interesting. Some really cool findings.
Yeah.
So guys, if you want the slides, again, as always, feel free to drop us an email. We're kind of happy to kind of circulate them. We'll probably be putting them live next week or during the week, either way, as well. So anytime, feel free to reach out. Dominique, do we have any exciting questions? Do you have any questions for Paul? Either way.
I'm just checking at the moment on other channels. I think there are no questions at the moment, so I think the brains are still working.
Brains are still working, or you're like, ugh.
But please. Yes, yeah, because I mean the topic is not that simple today as usual. Let's say in the political way, but. I do not have any questions open because my brain is actually the same, because I'm just thinking about the tracking part, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
heavy stuff.
Don't think too much about it. It's never going to happen again in Europe, I would say. I think it's even going to be getting worse. So we literally need consent for everything, which especially with e-privacy, which is considered somewhat a bit down the road. Or at least the iterations down the road. I think, that shall be interesting. But funny enough, like we kind of maybe a quick insight from one of the projects at PKs we're currently working on, like rebuilding some of our landing pages as well. And the guys that are involved in the project, like we now set up a chat that's, I think it's called Speedy Gonzalez actually. And the reason for having it called Speedy Gonzalez is the fact that this insane amount of tracking pixels that kind of come through all the platforms, and then you have split testing from like a Hotjar or whatnot. Yeah. And you have if you have the GTM that brings in like another 5 or 6 pixels, the impact on performance is just absolutely mind-blowing. Like so for that specific landing page that I saw earlier, we had like 2 megabytes of JavaScripts that's only brought in due to like third-party scripts. So that was Facebook, Twitter. It was our like phone number provider for like dynamic phone numbers. It was a Hotjar that we use for split testing. It was obviously the GTM pixel as well, and some others I can't even recall. I think there was like custom audiences and whatnot. And I mean, of course, if you do it through GTM, I mean, the tag manager itself is kind of been executed asynchronously, so it doesn't necessarily impact performance straight away. However, I mean, if you like transfer another 2 megabytes through a mobile phone connection, that certainly is still like impacting the behavior of the site, right? So it's an interesting thing. So you can track a lot and you can do crazy things and nice things only client side using JavaScript. But I think one thing that people need to keep in mind though is that obviously comes with potential downsides as well. So I think the bare minimum should be to kind of regularly understand the amount of pixels that you're using, and the kind of are they all still in use? Do they really need to be fired at the events that you initially set them up to fire at? So those things, does it need to be on load, or can it be like when the page has been finished, so with a callback or whatnot? So especially in times where Google pushes like really heavy on performance, and like now in the future on Web Vitals even becoming kind of a factor, ranking factor, whatever that means at the end of the day. But I think the initiative to push for performance is very, very clear, and that's not going to go away. So I think one of my representations in the past, I had this example where I talked about performance, where there was the USA Today. So they kind of built like a completely stripped down version of their site. No advertisement, no tracking, no nothing, because they obviously have audience in the European Union. So when you came to the .com, you kind of got geo redirected to like the European version. It was exactly the same site, like one-on-one the same, but no advertisement and no tracking. And that site was insanely fast, like really, really, really insanely fast. And it was like, I think it was 5 megabytes less, just because of tracking, and obviously ad scripts in this case, right? Because they have like those models in publishing heavily rely on imagery, so like ad imagery. Insane. So I think we as marketers are somewhat also a bit responsible for just making the web actually slow. I think sadly that is what it is, right?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah.
But we want the data. We like the data. We need the data at least where we can get it. So I think that's the other side. But yeah, I think being a bit more sensitive at least about it overall is probably the right approach. I mean, I'm not saying don't track. That's probably not going to work as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question.
I think
right?
someone from our team actually is asking. I'm not sure who is hiding behind that, but isn't most of the 2 MB cached in the browser, CDN, etc.? Well, yes and no. It's not necessarily cached initially, but it is of course cached for repetitive use. So the initial JavaScript is not always the same, and if it's not coming from a CDN, then it's not necessarily cached, and that especially is true for the scripts. And even though it's not that, it's the fact that still as a user it needs to be executed in the browser, and that needs to be happening anyway. So even if you strip out the transfer time because you have it on the disk, it still needs to be executed, which in return means, so that happens in your browser, so in your Chrome, obviously. And that means JavaScript heavily uses your CPU. So the bigger the JavaScript is, the more complex it is, which at the end of the day means that it just blocks the main thread before you get something on the side. So the caching and the transfer, of course, is one thing, but it's just the fact of the matter that JavaScript per se makes the site slower because it runs on the client side and not on the server side. So nice try, guys. You just want to keep your tracking, huh? I don't think this is how it's going to work. Right.
All right.
So do we have any other questions on this, or are we? No, I guess we're not.
No.
All right. So then a quick couple of things for housekeeping, I think. So for the slides, you email us. We mentioned that. There will be no PKs on air next week. There's a bit of a vacation and absence going on. So no PKs on air next week, but we will be back on the 13th, which is a Monday, same date, same time, same place, so to say, so 4 p.m. Monday the 13th. We yet have to figure out the topic, so no pre-announcement for the topic. I'm sure it's going to be great. You will see it on any of our channels in advance. Paul, thank you very, very much for your time. It was very insightful, as always. I really enjoyed that. We will invite you back for sure. That makes our life so much easier. There's so much exciting topics in paid social, so well done. Dominique, thanks for joining. And we see you guys back in 2 weeks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.